Alright guys, so today we're going to be swapping our front coilover lower mounts. That's this lower portion right here that bolts up to the knuckle in the car. I wanted to show you a little trick that I like to use for loosening these collars. After they sit in the same place for a long time, they tend to get seized up and pretty hard to break loose. So I actually have this adjustable spanner wrench from Amazon. You can get this, and not only is this spanner wrench a lot stronger than the flat ones that usually come with the coilovers themselves, but you can actually put a cheater pipe on the end of the handle so that you can get that additional leverage. So once you have the steering wheel locked in place, you can actually use this on a variety of the different sized collars because it's adjustable, and put a cheater pipe on the end of it in order to give you that leverage you need to break it loose. Alright, once you have this collar broken loose, you can go ahead and remove this ABS line as well as the brake line on the opposing side. And one of the things you can actually do is get these nuts loosened on the top bolt, which is a camber bolt, and the bottom bolt. I like to take the top bolt out first. Since the bolt is eccentric, it might actually give you a hard time getting it out later. And we can take this nut off and have the bolt hold the knuckle in place for now. Now, it's important to remember that this mount, as well as these fasteners, are the only thing that is holding this entire knuckle and suspension assembly up. So what you want to do is jack up the knuckle assembly from the bottom so that you can take that tension off the last bolt that you need to remove that's holding the knuckle assembly to the lower mount. And then once you get that bolt out, you can actually lower the jack and remove the knuckle assembly from the lower mount. So these are Broadway Static coilovers. So the reason we're actually swapping lower mounts from Broadway to BC is that the holes stick out further on the mounts themselves. So the theory is I'll be able to get more of a slot and therefore more camber from slotting the BCs fully, as opposed to these Broadways I've had fully slotted for a few years now. And along with this, the top hat and the camber bolt in the lower hole, I'm only able to get about negative 17 degrees. We're trying to get around negative 20 degrees so that we can match the rear. So that's our theory that we're going to try and put to the test with these BC lower mounts. Alright, so now we're just still test fitting everything, but we're going to use the reverse order that we used to take this knuckle off the mount, and we're going to jack it up into the mount, and then we're just going to put our lower bolt in place to hold the knuckle in place while we do some measurements. Alright, so now with our lower bolt in place, we can actually jack the knuckle up from the edge of the rotor. And what that'll do is bring the top of the knuckle in all the way, so we can see how much camber we'll be able to get from a full slot on these mounts. Alright, so it looks like I was able to get to about negative 20 degrees just from swapping from Broadway lower mounts to the BC lower mounts. So what I'm going to do is slot these all the way, and then if I need to do any fine-tuning measurements, I'll just do it via the top hat. Alright, so one of the things I like to do for slotting is actually taking this lower mount and bolting it on the outside of the knuckle with the lower bolt. And then once you do that, you can actually use the outside of the knuckle and that hole to trace where exactly you need to either cut into a new hole, or for this setup I'm just going to be drilling a new hole altogether. So you get the bolt and nut in place. And then this will show you exactly where that arc needs to travel. Now, a common misconception that some people have is that when they slot the upper hole in the lower mount, they're actually cutting it straight inwards. But the problem with that is, as the knuckle rotates within the mount, the hole actually travels in an arc. So as opposed to being straight inwards, the hole will actually travel in an arc and travel slightly downwards. So it's important to take that into account. If you use this method with the mount on the outside of the knuckle, then you can actually go and trace the hole and see exactly where it's going to end up with, so you can drill an accurate hole. Alright, so now we got our new holes marked on both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a pilot hole, and then we're going to use a drill bit like this to enlarge the hole. Alright, so we just got done drilling the holes. We ended up having to make the holes a little bit bigger than we originally planned because it wasn't far enough over on the knuckle hole side. But it's all good. It actually ended up pretty nice. And basically when you do this method of drilling a new hole as opposed to enlarging the original hole, you pretty much get rid of the entire risk for slippage or any of your camber adjustments moving around. So with this new hole method as opposed to a slot, the knuckle is pretty much guaranteed to stay in the same position that you put it in. Alrighty, so we were able to get around -20 degrees in the front, just what we were looking for. We might have to pull some out later, just because I'm not sure about the fitment as of right now, but also it still needs to be aligned, and we might actually have to extend the lower control arm further to prevent the axle from binding, but we'll see. But looks like the theory was correct, and switching to that BC lower mounts was able to get us a few extra degrees over the Broadway mounts. So hopefully the method I showed you guys for drilling a new hole for camber as opposed to slotting helps you guys out.